Discovering my husband's infidelity began with the tiniest incident. During a friend's dinner, John, usually so aloof, suddenly started serving dishes to everyone present. Later, I overheard him murmuring a line from Roman Holiday in his study, "To hold your hand. I'd shake hands with the whole damn world." Pathetic. Welcome to my channel. If you like this story, please click to subscribe. There are more wonderful stories waiting for you to listen to. Chapter 1. John and I both crawled out of backwater towns. We studied relentlessly, clawed our way up through China's Gaokao exams, earned our bachelor's from a top 100 university and master's from an elite program. After graduation, we secured government jobs. Starting at entry-level positions, we painstakingly built our lives in the provincial capital, no connections. Just grit. Now we've both risen to department heads, driving decent cars and owning homes where the housing fund covers our mortgages. In short, we'd achieved the ultimate Chinese dream: upward mobility through exams, hard work, and zero shortcuts. This year brought two more blessings. In spring, John got promoted to a corporate leadership role, tripling his salary. The second miracle arrived 2 months ago: I'm pregnant. After 6 years of marriage and fertility struggles, the Wilson family's hereditary low sperm count practically guarantees infertility after 30. I'd conceived during John's first spring as a 30-something. When the test turned positive, my stoic husband wept like a child in my arms. Our friend group still meets regularly despite everyone's busy careers. Tonight's dinner began with the usual fawning over John's imminent promotion to deputy director. He smiled modestly, that quiet pride intact in government circles. He's renowned as a wordsmith, his talent breeding natural arrogance. Michael's coming with his wife, someone mentioned. The room stiffened. Michael, John's hometown buddy, had blown his construction earnings on gambling, landed on the credit blacklist, and become that friend who gets drunk, rants about societal injustice, and once hospitalized a pal during a brawl. I invited him. John set down his teacup. Friendship shouldn't die with misfortune. The group murmured uneasy agreement. I frowned. Less about Michael's presence than his chain smoking. At 5 months pregnant, I'd begged him to stop last time, only to endure his rich bitch sneers. Turning to John, I found him staring at the entrance like a man awaiting revelation. The door slammed open. I jumped as Michael barged in, cursing. $20 for parking? Highway robbery. He wheeled on the figure behind him. Useless shrew. What wife stabs her man in the back? Emily shuffled in, head bowed, fresh fingerprints blooming on her cheek. Sweet-faced and gentle, she'd drawn the short straw in spouses. Enough, John snapped. John suddenly spoke in a low, displeased voice. When Michael saw him, his expression immediately shifted into a wide grin. Bro. My bad. This hot temper of mine gets the better of me sometimes. I'll buy a round of drinks later. He plopped down at the table, grabbing chopsticks to snatch peanuts without glancing back at the others. Emily stood awkwardly by the doorway, discreetly tucking a strand of hair to shield her face. The guests averted their eyes tactfully. I sighed and called out, "Emily, come sit before the food gets cold." She flashed me a grateful smile, settling beside Michael. "Thanks, sis." Her gaze drifted past me to John as she murmured, "Thanks, bro." John's jaw tightened imperceptibly. Throughout dinner, Michael alternated between cursing and chain smoking, his face flushing lobster red from liquor. Emily peeled shrimp and refilled his glass, barely touching her own food. As I opened my mouth to remind her to eat, John unexpectedly served fish to Terry, our host. "Shouldn't I be the one serving you?" Terry chuckled. "Doesn't matter," John replied evenly. He methodically served each guest clockwise: a prawn here, a soup ladle there. The table buzzed with astonishment. "Since when does the sun rise in the west, John?" Must be celebrating Sarah's pregnancy. Laughter erupted as I smiled. Assuming they were right. John's parents had been more thrilled about this baby than when he'd passed the civil service exam. I turned to tease him, but froze mid-breath. His gaze lingered on Emily across the table. She sipped broth with downcast eyes, chestnut hair veiling tear-reddened lids. The chicken soup in her bowl came from John's serving spoon. Working in HR had honed my people-reading skills. Tonight's elaborate charade of hospitality had only one true recipient. My mind flashed to 2 months prior Michael's father's funeral, when John had accompanied the couple back to their hometown for 5 days. The chopsticks clinked softly as I pushed rice around my plate. Through the steamed fish aroma, memories surfaced of our first meeting, the overachiever who'd always claimed the prime lakeside study spot at dawn. His crisp Oxford shirt reflected in the water. I came in second. We were strikingly similar, both from small towns. From humble backgrounds. The culmination of 3 generations' efforts to produce a shining example of success. For years, we'd carried the weight of expectations and accolades, running relentlessly without pause. I finally felt I'd found my kindred spirit. Like discovering I wasn't alone while trudging through lightless ocean depths. I believed I meant the same to him. I didn't mention the lunch incident. That night, John held me tightly. Desire palpable. Sarah. Can't we? Not yet. I murmured. The doctor said wait 3 months. He groaned, rolling away. Cold shower it is. I was half asleep when he shook me awake. Frowning. Michael's on another drunken rampage. Smashing up his place. I need to check on them. Who called? I sat up. Emily. She and the kids were sobbing hysterically. My phone showed 11:23 p.m. Call the police if it's that bad. You're no relation to them, Sarah. John's shout startled me. His expression turned unfamiliar, impatient. Almost scornful. Since when did you become this heartless? Now that you've made it, you'll watch our own kind suffer? You know Emily wouldn't ask unless desperate. How can you be so cold? I stared, barely recognizing him. Years had passed since I last argued with anyone. Early on, I'd learned anger solved nothing, only bred more chaos. Even when necessary, rage was tool, never goal. Blinking slowly, I asked, should I feel guilty for earning my life through hard work? John loomed over the bed, icy. I'm going. I didn't hear him return. By morning, his shoes lay discarded by the door. Guest room shut tight. My performance review couldn't wait for domestic drama. This spat would resolve by evening. Returning home, I found the dining table set with steaming fish stew, sliced mangoes, and a chocolate cake. John emerged with miso soup. Smile effortless. Perfect timing. Your favorite ginger-glazed cod's getting cold. I placed my bag slowly on the console. Meeting his gaze, I mirrored his smile. Happy birthday to me. He chuckled. 31 now. Officially an old man. During dinner, he casually mentioned, last night I went to lecture Michael and came back late. Didn't want to wake you, so I slept in the guest room. I nodded silently. As we cleared the table, I suddenly turned to him. My sleep's been off lately. Maybe you should take the smaller bedroom? He paused. All right. Over the following weeks, John and I settled into a quiet routine. I immersed myself in new hire interviews and onboarding procedures at work, while he launched a major corporate initiative. We moved through our days like 2 rational adults, carefully weighing every decision precisely why I'd always believed marrying another pragmatist made sense. The illusion shattered when David called. My 6-year younger brother had just completed his materials engineering master's and sounded uncharacteristically hesitant. Sarah, how's everything with John? Out with it, I demanded, massaging my temple. His story unfolded in stumbling phrases. Of 8 local graduates from his prestigious program, 7 had secured positions at John's corporation, the industry leader where David had dreamed of working since undergrad. Only he'd been rejected, with vague references to leadership reservations. My fingers whitened around the phone. "Let me handle this." John didn't pick up. When he called back 10 minutes later, I fired without preamble. "What qualifications does David lack?" A beat of silence. "Sarah. He's fully qualified." "Then why?" "New management wants experienced hires. We had one fewer position this cycle." His tone turned patronizing. "Bringing in my brother-in-law during my first year as VP? That's textbook nepotism. You of all people should." "That's bullshit." The curse tore from me. "David chose this career path years before your promotion. His acceptance would have been automatic regardless of who's managing. And this experienced hires directive wasn't that your decision?" Cold steel entered his voice. "You're in HR. Act like it." The line went dead. I doubled over. Phantom kicks fluttering beneath my palm. My baby's movements only deepened the guilt. David had worked tirelessly for this chance, only to be sabotaged by family. John remained immovable through our Cold War, his resolve hardening as my pregnancy progressed. Even David tried mediating. "Don't fight over me. I'll find something else." The final blow came days later during lunch with colleagues. Emily glided into the restaurant surrounded by laughing friends. Our eyes met. With calculated grace, she approached arm in arm with a man I recognized, Michael, John's former protege turned frequent business companion. Her smile held knife-edge sweetness. "Sarah. Such a coincidence." "Sarah. What a coincidence." I smiled and nodded. "Yes. What a coincidence." The man beside her grinned at me. "Aunt told me you're Mrs. Wilson." I wanted to come say hi. I'm one of his employees. I asked politely, "Which department are you in?" He replied, "I'm part of the new batch. Still in training." Mr. Wilson really helped me out. The company never hires non-fresh graduates. But Aunt asked him to make an exception. I lowered my gaze. Silent for a long moment. Emily spoke softly. "Michael and I should take you and John out for dinner sometime. The 4 of us. How about it, Sarah?" The soup bowl on the table had congealed a layer of greasy film, both unappetizing and nauseating. I slowly raised my eyes and chuckled. "Sure." At 10 p.m., John entered to find me reading in bed. Our party committee had organized a reading club, and I'd chosen selected works of Mao Zedong. He extended a stack of cash. "David just graduated and needs to rent a place. Give him this $5,000 as a gesture from his brother-in-law." I glanced at the money. "No need." John's brow furrowed. After a pause, he said with forced patience, "Sarah, you're not still upset about the internship, are you? This promotion makes me walk on eggshells every day. Can't you understand?" I closed my book. No need means David doesn't require housing. He bought an apartment. John froze. "Bought? With what money?" "Your parents' pensions barely." I looked up silently. Our eyes met, and he cleared his throat. "He's got a master's degree. Even without this job, Sarah, we're family. You're pregnant. Let's stop fighting." How could he afford? I lent him $30,000. The market's down, perfect timing for a small condo. "You what?" His face paled. $30,000? Without consulting me? Leaning back against the headboard, I tilted my head. "John, are you overworked?" I said lent, not gave. Remember when you gave your sister $30,000 after her divorce? You told me afterward. That's different. How? My sister was homeless. You agreed later. And David? I nodded slowly. He'd have stayed in company dorms if hired. Now he's scrambling. As for consulting you, I'm asking now. John stood motionless, mouth opening soundlessly. I understood about your sister. Can't you understand my brother? Or do I lack authority here? 3 years dating. 6 married. I knew his patterns, raw emotion first. Then calculated control. The money was spent. The reason traced back to him. Amplified by me. Fair trade. The room fell silent. John's expression shifted through anger, logic, and finally settled on magnanimous calm. Of course. Sarah. You naturally have every right to make decisions in this household. David is your biological brother. Not some stranger. It's only right we help with his life's major event. I curved my lips into a smile, speaking gently. All right. I'm tired and need to sleep. You should rest early too. John walked out silently, pausing at the doorway before turning back. There's one more thing. Michael wants to invite us to dinner. If you don't want to go, I'll attend alone. I'll go. The Browns hosted a family dinner. When John and I arrived, Michael stood hunched over the balcony pleading with debt collectors on the phone. Their 9-year-old son Tommy opened the door, wordlessly retreating to his room with a phone glued to his face. Michael spun around with a defeated expression when he noticed us, immediately snapping at Emily emerging from the kitchen with steaming soup. Are you blind? Can't you see we have guests? The scalding liquid splashed on Emily's hand, leaving angry red marks. John slammed our gift box on the table. Enough. We came for dinner, not to watch you berate your wife. Emily bit her lip, forcing a smile. It's nothing. He's stressed from work. Letting off steam doesn't hurt anyone. John glanced at her injured hand, his expression darkening. Emily worked tirelessly, preparing an elaborate spread. During dinner, John finally erupted. You've got a woman who cooks and cares for you daily. Don't take this blessing for granted. Never lay hands on her again, that's domestic violence. She could press charges. Michael nodded drunkenly while Emily giggled. Oh, relax. Men endure so much pressure at work. If he can't vent to his closest family, who else? I'll keep tending our home. Everything will work out. I looked up sharply from my soup, startled. Beside me, John released an almost imperceptible sigh tinged with admiration. Flushed with alcohol, Michael slurred. Bro. She might not match Sarah's competence, but when it comes to bedroom skills. Michael! Sleep it off! John barked. Emily blushed crimson, accidentally meeting John's gaze. Oh, John. I never properly thanked you for helping my nephew. You're mistaken. John cut her off harshly. I don't know your nephew. Confused me with someone else. The room plunged into silence until I laughed coldly. Emily. You should thank me too. That special internship slot your nephew got? John created it by rejecting David's application. Chopsticks froze midair. We drove home in silence. I headed straight to pack my suitcase. John lingered in the living room before finally approaching the bedroom. Sarah. There's a misunderstanding, he said heavily from the doorway. Let me explain. Every word will be truthful. I continued folding clothes without looking up. About David, I admit partiality. His voice tightened. With everyone scrutinizing my new corporate position, I had to eliminate any perception of nepotism. If my brother-in-law joined immediately after my promotion, he spread his hands helplessly. My priority was preventing gossip before it started. As for Emily's relative, it was purely coincidental. Since the position was vacant anyway, I thought why not do a favor? Of course. This opportunity is highly sought after. The reason I gave it to Emily, well, I felt deeply sympathetic towards her. His voice suddenly grew heavy. When I visited their hometown with that couple, I witnessed Michael and his mother verbally abuse her and even get physical. It reminded me of my sister. I zipped up my suitcase and prepared to wheel it out. John grabbed my hand. Sarah, please don't act impulsively. I admit Michael's situation was unfair. Which is why I didn't object when you lent him money. After all these years together, and with the baby coming, are you really ending things over this? His voice cracked. Eyes red-rimmed. Apart from when we'd learned about the pregnancy, I hadn't seen him this emotional in years. I gently withdrew my hand, maintaining calm composure. I'm attending the training conference. He stared at me with bloodshot eyes, scrutinizing my expression. Training? You never mentioned any conference. Silently, I showed him my phone displaying the management seminar notification at our alma mater's hotel. But you said you wouldn't attend any trainings after getting pregnant. He persisted. People change their minds. My voice remained flat. I drove myself to the university hotel and checked in for the 4-day program. On day 3, he texted that Emily's nephew had failed his internship evaluation and was being replaced by waitlisted candidates. Day 4 brought his offer to pick me up. I accepted. After David got the position, he came to see me. We'd always been close. This was the same little brother who'd tearfully shielded me from bullies in elementary school. Shouting, "Run, Sarah!" through his tears. Are you and John fighting? He pressed. I shook my head. You know I hate confrontations. His brow furrowed. But why did he suddenly change his mind about the job? Giving me that money, it feels wrong. If this causes trouble between you two, I ruffled his hair. Don't overthink it. You earned this fair and square. Consider the compensation money standard procedure. I'll pay back every cent. David vowed. No one will call you a brother-obsessed clinger. I chuckled. How'd you manage it anyway? John's not the compromising type. Solutions come in many forms. I said gently. Effective methods beat dramatic showdowns. A month passed without visible changes. We never fought about the incident, letting it dissolve into daily rhythms like sugar and tea. John gradually distanced himself from Michael, never mentioning Emily again. He became the model husband, punctual, attentive, meticulously planning meals for my second trimester appetite. Life seemed peaceful except for 2 minor developments. I visited the jewelry store and examined their photo records. There it was, a gold bracelet. I remember your husband. He said he wanted to surprise his wife when he bought it. You two are so lucky. The second incident happened last week. My car was being repaired at the dealership, and John had been driving me around these days. That afternoon when the storm hit, I waited at the designated intersection for 40 minutes while his phone kept showing busy signal. When he finally arrived, half of me was drenched. Got held up by a call from upper management. Why didn't you just take a cab? Couldn't get one in the rain. I sneezed. Yesterday, when I visited my friend's bakery, she mentioned, during that downpour, your husband's car was parked outside my shop for nearly an hour. I thought it was empty until it suddenly drove off. Turns out he was making calls the whole time. I froze. What time was this? Around 5 or 6 in the evening. I turned to look at the storefront. This spot was just one turn away from where I'd waited. That meant while I stood drenched in the storm for 40 minutes, he'd been sitting in his car making phone calls mere blocks away. What emergency could possibly prevent him from driving those extra 100 yards? That night, I heard him watching Roman Holiday in his study, murmuring a line, "To shake your hand." I shook hands with everyone in the room. His eyes narrowed slightly as he spoke, an unreadable expression flickering across his face. I remembered the 4th day of my alma mater's training program. I'd lingered by the artificial lake for hours, watching sunlight dance on the water. Hesitant, uncertain. My mother called midway. "Sarah, I wish I could come take care of you with my bad knees. Stay cheerful during your pregnancy. Eat well. And remember everything for the baby." Before I could leave the lakeside, My mother-in-law rang. Sarah, you need proper nutrition now. John's father and I are coming to help. Tell me what you're craving. I finally replied okay before leaving. John had his virtue sharp, diligent, driven, most crucially, promising. That mattered above all. As for flaws, I used to attribute them to inherent traits: selfishness, impatience, vanity. But those are human nature. I have mine too. Manageable, I thought, through reason and control. Now I realize there's another layer. Circumstances have changed. He's reached unprecedented heights. New environments breed new challenges. New challenges demand fresh solutions. Life's about crossing rivers by feeling stones. I just never imagined fate's twists would unfold so violently. The day before retrieving my repaired car, I attended a city council meeting at the Women's Federation. Dismissed early, I took a cab home. On the freeway, a truck rear-ended us violently. Our vehicle rolled multiple times before slamming into a bridge pillar. When I passed out, I saw the driver struggling to escape. I don't know how much time had passed when I groggily opened my eyes again amidst the chaos and noise. Outside was mayhem. Multiple cars were damaged. But mine had taken the worst hit. A dull ache pulsed in my abdomen as ambulance sirens pierced through the commotion. Through the window, I watched my taxi driver gesture urgently toward me while speaking to paramedics, who immediately rushed over. Just as relief began to settle, I spotted John blocking the medical team's path. His voice carried sharp authority: save the child first. I'm telling you. Prioritize the child. Behind him stood Emily cradling a wailing David, blood streaking the boy's leg. I woke later in a hospital bed. The seatbelt saved you, just some forehead abrasions, the doctor said. When I touched my stomach asking about the baby, he reassured me it was stable. After confirming all casualties had been brought here, I slipped out to search the wards. In the farthest room, I found David sleeping with a casted leg. Emily sat weeping beside him until John entered. Thank God you came today, she whispered, cheeks flushing as his hovering hand retreated. I'd have been lost without you. You know I'll always help. John replied stiffly. Emily's fingers brushed his sleeve. No one's ever, not since growing up unwanted. Then enduring Michael's fists, her voice broke. That night in the mountains, when we were squeezed together in the truck, I saw how you tensed when my hand, Sarah's pregnancy must have left you so lonely. John's throat moved. The darkest night. Your skin glowed like moonlight. I only helped once. Yet you. Once was enough. His rough whisper hung between them as she pressed his palm to her tear-damp cheek. My in-laws arrived as surgical sedation wore off, rushing from the train station after hearing about the crash. Through the morphine haze, their voices blended with monitors beeping the rhythm of fractures yet unseen. With my swollen, bloodshot eyes and deathly pale face, my mother-in-law's voice trembled. The baby can't be. I lay weakly on the hospital bed, sobbing uncontrollably. Dad. Mom. The baby's gone. The doctor said if I'd arrived 5 minutes earlier, we could have saved them. But the first ambulance got intercepted. They stole our ambulance. They stole my child's chance to live. My father-in-law roared with bloodshot eyes. Who killed my grandchild? I'll make them pay with their lives. Overwhelmed by emotion, I collapsed into unconsciousness. Later, the nurses told me what happened. After learning the full story, my in-laws stormed into Emily's hospital room. John wasn't there. He'd gone to buy food for Emily and her newborn. When he returned carrying dumplings, he found his parents pinning Emily to the floor, relentlessly slapping her face despite others' attempts to stop them. Emily's face had swollen beyond recognition, her continuous screams echoing through the room. My mother-in-law looked up to see her son frozen in the doorway and wailed, John, this woman's child stole your wife's ambulance. Your son is dead. The bowl slipped from John's hands, steaming dumplings scattering across the floor like broken promises. While I slept fitfully in recovery, my in-laws discovered the ambulance interceptor had been their own son. After slapping John repeatedly, they lamented to the heavens. "This is fate's cruel design." They resolved through tears that I must never learn this truth, knowing I'd despise him forever. When I awoke to find John hollow-eyed and apologizing through tears for failing to protect our child, he could only kneel in anguished silence, hot tears carving paths down his cheeks. After several days, I returned home to recuperate. My in-laws left heartbroken, their hopeful arrival now shadowed by grief. "If the Wilson family is destined to end here," they said pityingly, "we can't fight destiny. We only regret this burden falls on you." For the next month, John devoted himself completely to my care. Despite his demanding job, he spent every free moment nurturing me with homemade recovery meals, surpassing even traditional postpartum care standards. As I regained strength reading selected works of Mao Zedong in bed, he grew visibly thinner. My workplace supervisor and Women's Federation representatives visited. Since the accident occurred during work travel, it qualified as occupational injury. The female CEO, deeply moved by my ordeal, assured me bedside, "Sarah, don't worry about work. Everyone recognizes your dedication. You received the highest votes for this year's Outstanding Employee Award. Thank you for the support." I replied earnestly. "I'll strive to exceed expectations once recovered. Rest well. Greater opportunities await," she said before leaving. John entered as I lay contemplating. "What soup would you like today, Sarah?" After considering, I requested pork rib and lotus root soup. "I'll get fresh ingredients now," he responded eagerly. Watching him disappear down the hallway, I reopened Mao's writings. Tracing my handwritten margin notes, maximize proactive determination to overcome obstacles and transform disadvantages into advantages. Near full recovery, Michael visited with Emily. I greeted her with gentle warmth. When she saw me, her eyes darted away. As we spoke, my gaze fell on her wrist. "Emily, that gold bracelet looks stunning. Must have cost a fortune?" Michael snorted. "Where'd she get real gold? Bought that fake from a street vendor. Worthless." Emily flushed, stammering, "Why yeah, just a $20 trinket. Thought it looked shiny." I smiled, pulling up photos on my phone. "Look, John secretly bought this one to surprise me. Wouldn't have known if I hadn't found the receipt in his jacket." Michael's eyes lit up. "Whoa. That's real? How much?" "Receipt says $2,888. I grinned. "But keep it quiet, he hasn't given it to me yet." I paused abruptly. "Wait, doesn't this look exactly like Emily's?" Michael squinted. "Dead ringer." Emily forced a smile. "Counterfeits copy designer styles nowadays." "True." I shrugged. "Can't get real jewelry from flea markets." Michael glanced between my phone and Emily's wrist, brow furrowing. I changed topics cheerfully. "Emily, thanks for visiting. Been so lonely lately. Remember our neighbors? They sold their house." She stiffened. "Why?" "Turns out the husband was sleeping with someone else's wife. Got caught red-handed by the angry spouse. Paid hush money until they had to sell everything." Michael sat unusually quiet. After returning to work, John grew increasingly withdrawn. Our lost child haunted him. He'd force smiles around me, then stare blankly at walls for hours. Michael started frequently asking him out for drinks. John initially refused, worried I'd mind. I squeezed his hand gently. "Go. We all need friends right now." He looked at me, moved. "Sarah, modern medicine's amazing. Once you recover, I will have children." I stated firmly. He might be lying. I wasn't. My doctor confirmed full recovery. My boss kept her promise, promoting me post-leave. Sarah, she said, women face tougher climbs, but competence always wins. I buried myself in work, seizing every opportunity. One midnight, crashing noises woke me. Michael sprawled in our living room. Sleep tight, sis. Just helping John grab some files. He reeked of whiskey. I hurried to the study and collided with John in the doorway. He looked disheveled with messy hair and a distinct palm print on his face. John. What happened? Startled. He dropped the cash in his hands. It's nothing. I accidentally hit a street vendor's stall while driving. I'm having Michael compensate them with this money. Don't worry. When Michael left with the cash, he glanced at John while waving his phone ambiguously. I'll take this much for now. Bro. We'll talk if more's needed. Yeah. John's jaw twitched. Just go. Since they both claimed everything was fine, I went back to sleep until morning. 6 months later, during a work presentation to executives, I received a police call summoning me to the station without explanation. My supervisor sent union representatives to accompany me. At the station, officers informed me my husband John had gotten into a fight where someone's ear got sliced off. Who cut whose ear? John severed Michael's ear. The officer repeated, then explained the backstory. That night half a year ago when Michael was abusing Emily, John went to intervene. Both got drunk. When Michael woke up midnight in his living room, he heard his wife's suggestive moans from the bedroom. He found John thrusting atop Emily. Enraged, Michael dragged John off and beat him bloody. To silence Michael, John agreed to pay compensation, the real reason I'd seen them exchanging money that fateful night. But Michael's gambling debts couldn't be settled with one payment. Over 6 months, he extorted over $180,000 from John using video evidence from his phone. That's impossible. Where would he get $180,000? I exclaimed. Online loans, the officer said. John confessed to borrowing over $100,000 from various platforms. When Michael demanded another $50,000 this time, John snapped, grabbed a kitchen knife at Michael's place and I sat stunned. A union rep patted my shoulder. Stay strong, Sarah. Michael received 10 years for grand extortion. John got fired for misconduct plus 1 year for aggravated assault. We divorced during his incarceration. Since I knew nothing about his loans, the debts weren't mine. At the prison meeting months later, John looked skeletal and unrecognizable. No tears, just vacant stillness. When he saw me, his whole body flinched before his head sank into that grotesque bow. He trembled throughout the proceedings. I remained composed. As I left, he suddenly called out. His eyes held bewildered despair. Why does fate twist so strangely? I was on top of the world not long ago. How did everything change? Sarah, his voice cracked. Why? I met his gaze steadily. You lost your way, John. Every step here was your choice. Deep down, you know why. Back at work, colleagues congratulated me on my approved secondment. 2 months earlier, amid the scandal, I'd requested temporary assignment to county operations, a fresh start. I walked with measured steps to express gratitude to my supervisor. En route, my doctor video called. Since the surgery, I'd frequently consulted her for recovery advice, gradually becoming friends. I ducked into an empty conference room to answer. After exchanging pleasantries, she remarked, Sarah, I'm still stunned remembering your surgery day. One moment you worried about the baby's safety. The next you requested an abortion. Where did you find that courage? I smiled. I admire my supervisor deeply. Her words stay with me. Women may seem fragile, but when we muster unwavering resolve, nothing can stop us. Hanging up, I turned to find my supervisor framed in the doorway. My posture instinctively stiffened. She broke the silence first. Heard you were looking for me. The feeling's mutual. Yes. Ma'am. My transfer approval came through. I wanted to thank you properly. After a weighted pause, her face softened into a smile. Sarah. I worried this assignment might overwhelm you. Not anymore. Work hard these 2 years. I'll await your triumphant return. Barely containing my excitement, I mirrored her smile. You can count on me. Epilogue. When John emerged from prison, Emily stood beyond the gates. Tearful gaze lowered. I divorced Michael. After everything you sacrificed for me, I'll devote my life to caring for you. John stared for 2 heartbeats before sprinting away like hellhounds chased him. After extensive inquiries, John obtained Sarah's current number. Prison reflections had crystallized his truth. Only Sarah truly understood him. Only her presence ever steadied his world. A decade ago, when he'd had nothing, she'd chosen him. Now battered but experienced, he believed in redemption. The phone rang through chaotic background cheers. Blue team player 3. Out. Red team player 8. Out. Sarah. It's John. I'm out. Her surprised voice cut through the noise. Why are you calling? Drawing steady breath, he declared. Sarah. I intend to pursue you again. 2 seconds of silence broke into derisive laughter. Unfazed, he continued. I know you're not ready. I'll rebuild gradually. This year, I kept thinking about our child. The pain I caused. Overlapping his words, a booming announcement erupted. Frowny-faced Director Johnson to the stage for competition results. Amid applause, Sarah's voice sliced clear. John, that pregnancy was my choice to end. Someone spoke up. The elegant click of high heels echoed as Sarah seemed to be walking while talking. The baby was fine originally. I heard your conversation with Emily at the hospital and went to have the abortion. When you chose to save someone else's child, you abandoned your own. So don't come looking for me anymore. Don't ever appear in my life again. John, you've been irrelevant for ages. The line went dead with that final word. John sat motionless in the cramped, dimly lit motel room. He remained frozen for so long he might as well have turned to stone. Over the next 2 years, John suffered repeated failures and achieved nothing. To survive, he reluctantly became a food delivery rider. One day, he encountered Emily again at a rundown house. She opened the door to accept her order. Eyes swollen red, bruises mottling her skin. A man inside was yelling obscenities at her. The familiar scene, the familiar face. John nearly fled in panic, desperately grateful for his face mask. Another 2 years passed. He completely abandoned any ambition, deciding food delivery wasn't so bad after all. A lone wolf with no children anyway, what would he even do with money? That's when the bleak realization finally hit him. This was his life now. Forever. Occasionally, wind whipping past his electric scooter, he'd remember that earnest teenager studying by the artificial lake. Poor, awkward, yet brimming with hope. Back when he still had a future. Still had that beautiful girl. It almost felt like someone else's life. And